Making white bread. You know, it's something so simple. Once you see this video, you'll be amazed at how simple and easy it is. And I'm using the Zojirushi Virtuoso Plus Breadmaker. And so you'll get to see how nice some bread comes out of it. I know for some of you, this may be new, making your own bread, maybe something you want to start getting into now due to changing circumstances and such, or maybe just something you have an interest in general. But either way, I'm going to show you how to make up some basic white bread in a bread maker, and you're going to see how easy it is. And definitely you'll be someone, once you're able to do it yourself, you won't have to go to the store for the bread machine, for the bread. You won't have to go to the store for the bread again, but you know, you'll still have to get your core ingredients. And so we'll go through those, go through the details of how to make some really good basic white bread. I'm Darnell with Wave Oven Recipes, and let's get started on that basic white bread right now. Now, every bread machine or bread maker comes with a recipe book, or they usually offer their recipes online. For basic white bread, you want to use the bread machine recipe that comes with your bread maker or bread machine. Usually that's going to be the best one, and usually they've practiced and tried it out to make sure that it works best on your bread machine. For this one, I'll be, of course, using the one that came with mine. And one thing to keep in mind is even the order of the ingredients being added into the bake pan for your bread maker is crucial. Depending on your bread machine, the order might be different. So make sure that you're not only, getting all the correct ingredients in the right amounts. It's very important to get the right amounts when it comes to bread machines, because if you mess up on any of your measurements, then things are not going to go as well. But make sure that you add them in the correct order. And if you have a 2-paddle bread machine like this one, make sure that you have the paddles pointing in the same direction. Make sure that you have the paddles pointing the exact same way. I have both of mine pointing this way, but whatever way you have them pointing, ensure that they're pointing in the same direction or your loaf's not going to be even. But this recipe starts off with 320 mLs of water, and that can be kind of like a lukewarm water, maybe not even lukewarm, maybe in a little cooler than lukewarm, but not cold, not hot. So we've got our water in there, we'll get our next ingredients. And our next ingredient is 4 1/4 cups of bread flour. And when it comes to bread flour, you can, get this at your supermarket, but I would recommend you buy it in bulk at like a Costco. You can get like a huge, 50-pound bag for a very low price. And that way you've got basically flour to make bread for a very long time. Our next ingredient is 1/4 cup of white sugar. I put that on the edges, so I don't put that over the top in the middle, and I'll show you why in a minute. I just put it on the edges, just distribute on the edges. In the middle, I make a little well. That's where I'm going to put my bread machine yeast at the end. The next ingredient is 2 tablespoons of dry milk. And basically, I get this dry milk through like Sam's Club, get a big bag. If you have room in your fridge, that would be best, it'll help it last longer. But basically put in 2 level tablespoons of dry milk. I put those also on the edges, like kind of just over top of the salt. So just kind of put those over the edges here, carefully. The next ingredient is 2 teaspoons of salt. I want to mention nothing in this video is sponsored, by the way. Now, I use kosher salt. It is much better for you personally and for making bread than regular, table salt. You definitely don't want to use iodized salt. That iodized salt will not allow your bread to rise right. So 2 teaspoons kosher salt. Next up is 2 1/2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. And basically I soften this like in the microwave, and after it's softened, I just basically take little chips of it and put them in. I try and focus them on the edges, but just kind of where they drop, as long as they don't drop where I'm planning to put my bread machine yeast at the end, it's going to be all good. So you just need to soften it, you don't need to melt it. Some bread machines, read the instructions or recipe for theirs. Some call for fully melted butter. In this particular bread maker, you only need it to be lightly softened, you don't have to fully melt it. So in is our butter. Last ingredient that it goes in is the bread machine yeast or rapid rise yeast. And so get 2 teaspoons of that and stick that into the little well that was made in the middle for that. You have to keep your yeast separated from the rest of your ingredients, or the yeast activating with stuff ahead of time will cause it not to work properly with your flour and won't get things rising right. Now that I have all the ingredients in, I'm going to take the bake pan, put that down into the bread machine, and just kind of locks in place like that and close up. Now giving you a close-in view of the control panel on the Zojirushi Virtuoso Plus Breadmaker. You can see it's showing the current time. This one cooks by time, so it's going to tell me the time when it finishes once I get to the course that I want to cook with. And so I'm clicking the course button. I'm not doing course 2, that's whole wheat. I'm going down to course 1, which is for white bread. And we see that the end time is 5:37 p.m. Now I can do crust control if I want. If I hit crust control, you see it can go dark, it can go medium, well, light or medium. I'm going to keep it at medium. And so with that, all I need to do is press start. If I wanted to delay, I could do a delay timer and delay the time before I start this, but we're going to go ahead and start it now. So I'm going to hit start. And with that, basically things rest for a while. It sets and intentionally rest. And what it's going to do is let all the ingredients that are inside kind of settle down to an equilibrium. And then after things have settled down, it's going to actually start making the bread. So altogether, this entire process takes about 3.5 hours. And after, about 3.5 hours, about 3 hours, 25 minutes, the bread will be done. So we'll let this go ahead and go through its process. Once it's all done, then I'll bring you back and show you what to do once it's done. All right, so it's done. And turn it off there. Basically open up and we see our completed loaf of bread. I've got a cooling rack here, and so I'm just going to take the bread out. I've got some heat resistant gloves on. You want to be careful. And just going to set the bread there. This I put in the sink and I run some warm water in there with some dishwashing fluid, and let that soak for maybe 30 minutes. And then it's easier to lift the needles the little agitators that spin. It's easier to pull those out after you let those soak for a little while. But as for the loaf of bread, I leave it here on the cooling rack for about an hour. Now there's some important stuff to take note of when it comes to cooling your bread, because after you get it on your cooling rack, if you let it cool for about an hour, and then I take one of these bags, and you can get like maybe 100 of these bags or so from like Amazon or something, but you can basically get bags for homemade bread, and you want to get a new bag each time you do a different loaf of bread for sanitary reasons. These usually also come with twist ties, or you can just use whatever twist tie you have, but I put it in the bag after about an hour, put it in a cool, dark place so it can just rest overnight. Now, the reason that I do that is because if you start trying to cut this bread right away, it's going to be so kind of soft, so super soft. Trying to cut it, if you want to slice it for like sandwich bread, it's not going to slice the way you would really want it to at this point. It's going to be so soft, it's going to kind of cave in trying to slice it right now. And so I let it cool for an hour, then I bag it. Now, you want to probably bag it after about an hour, because at that point, although it's a little warm, it's still got a lot of moisture in there. And so it's a good time to bag it and preserve that moisture that's in there. If you, let's say, leave this on the cooling rack overnight, if I leave this here overnight, and then I try and bag it or try and cut it, it's going to have a lot less moisture, a good bit less moisture. And cutting it, it's going to be a really hard crust. The crust will be really hard, and so it'll be a harder cut, and it'll be a firmer loaf. If you want it really firm, you can just let it sit overnight and then cut it, and it'll be a real firm loaf. But if you like your bread kind of soft, then let it sit there for about an hour, then bag it up. It'll still be a little warm. You'll probably see some of the condensation in the bag a little bit after you bag it. And you just put it in a cool, dark place. And then after it's set overnight, it'll firm up in the bag but retain some moisture, as opposed to firming up in open air and not retaining as much moisture. So bag it, let it firm up a bit but retain some moisture, and then you can cut it the next day with a slicing guide that I'll show you tomorrow, and it's sliced real nice and easy, but you've got really soft slices of bread. So I'm gonna let this set, I'll bag it up, and I'll bring you back tomorrow when I break it out and start slicing it, and then we'll plate and taste test. Alright, so it's the next day. My bread has been just chilling out in its bag, and so I'm going to basically get it open. This is my bread slicing guide. You'll need a bread slicing guide if you want to be able to slice your bread properly for like sandwiches and stuff. You may think that you probably have a steady hand and you could cut it yourself to be slices for whatever you want, but if you really want to slice it for bread, you're going to need a bread slicing guide. Your hand, despite how steady you may believe it is, it's not going to work out as well unless you have a bread slicing guide. And this has basically grooves where you can cut your slices properly. You're also going to need a good bread knife. So, going to basically slice this bread now, right along the grooves in the bread slicing guide. And usually I'm able to slice between 16 to 17 slices out of a loaf. Alright, we finished slicing all the bread. So now I have myself a plate here, and I'm going to just get one of these slices off, and you can see these other slices here. And I want to show you something, because these slices that come out are very large. This is an ordinary sandwich bag. You see the bread is basically a little larger than even a sandwich bag. You can't get this in a normal sandwich bag. It's too big. This is a 1-quart bag, and with this 1-quart bag you can get the bread in. If you're going to be making sandwiches with this bread and you want to use 2 slices, then you're going to have to use a 1-quart bag, or you could cut the slices in half, but then you're going to have some smaller sandwiches. So the choice is yours, but anyway, we'll plate that there, and let's move around the camera and taste test. Alright, so let's taste some white bread. Here we go. Very soft, very tasty. Turned out great. And as I mentioned earlier, just make sure that depending on how firm you want it, you can just kind of leave it setting out. It's going to get firmer and harder the longer you leave it out, but it turns out great. I mean, doing your own homemade bread, you know what's in it. You know you didn't put anything crazy in there. It turns out well. You don't have to worry about when the grocery stores are out of bread. I'm telling you, grocery stores go up and you'll just be sitting back relaxing, because if you got plenty of flour and other ingredients, you're good to go. And so with that, you can find plenty of other recipes for like this bread machine and others at superwaveovenrecipes.com. Also, you can always come to this YouTube channel by going to waveovenrecipes.com. Also, you can find in the video description a referral link for this bread machine, also to the recipe book, also other ways to help this channel. And you can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Way Over Recipes. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, share the video with a friend, leave your comments, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and good eating.